far apart. They're very similar in nature. So in 2008, the BC Ministry of Education approved the use of 15-passenger vans for transporting students with the advice from the BC Schools Protection Program. And why would they do that? This was after this horrendous accident you're looking at. The school district stopped the use of the vehicles for a very short time until the BC Schools Protection Program decided how we could use the vehicles safely. They had some guidelines. And with the guidelines, I always felt it was never enough once I learned what the vehicles were really like. They said that the tires had to be checked frequently. The driver had to make sure that there was no passenger behind the back axle and no baggage back there. So as a bus driver, and as parents as you are, can you imagine a 15-passenger van with nothing in the back behind the axle? That's normally where the bags go. So if there's no bags behind the axle, they've got to be forward of the axle, and that's where the passenger sits. So there's a little bit of a geometry problem there, but it goes on. They made the volunteer driver, whether it was a coach or a parent, take full responsibility for the driving and the safe handling of that vehicle. So it comes down to Transport Canada and their fact sheet in 2008, 2436E. The local school boards choose the means and type of transportation that best suits their needs. Well, let me think. Best suits their needs. Is that a financial need, or is that a metaphoric need for safety? As I said earlier, lost in translation means a lot of different things to different people. As a professional, I think there's a problem with that. But we move on. So out of that, I decided that I realized that the provincial government has just downloaded the responsibilities to each school district. So those students are put in charge under a teacher or a volunteer. The principal signs the authorization for them to rent the van. The driver or the teacher takes the responsibility for the safety of up to 14 passengers. It leaves a lot to the imagination. And if I leave nothing else with you today, I want you to think. If it means closing your eyes and thinking about what I said for a few minutes, go right ahead. Because there's a lot of loopholes here, and I think further in the information you're going to start to see a lot of this. So let's talk a little bit about the history of the vans. They're originally designed to haul freight, and many of you are of that age and gender that you will know that those vans were used in the 60s and 70s to haul freight to stores and newspapers and to delivery routes and so on. But then some engineer got a bright idea. Maybe they got an incentive, I don't know, that, you know, my goodness, if we put some windows in this and put some seats in it, we could make some more sales. Shame on them. That's how this all perpetuated. So with the sales, of course, what is the target audience? Churches, daycare, schools, university, and unfortunately, airport services. And I bet you there isn't anybody in this room that's ever been on an airplane and go to a hotel and not been in one of these. And for those people that I have interviewed, I have driven one of these vans, they always have this uneasy feeling that when they're going down the highway, man, oh man, this thing just feels a little bit odd. And I'll tell you why in a bit. Automotive engineers that originally designed the vans that haul the freight never redesigned the vehicles to a higher safety standard to transport passengers. I know a little bit about that. The vehicle you drive that you may be so proud of, what's in it? Some really comfortable seats. You have 2 airbags in the front, and most vehicles now have side curtain airbags where they actually come around you in the event of an accident and they protect you. There's none of that. There's no airbags in the side curtains of the vans. All there is cardboard and steel. And not steel that's strong enough to support the weight of the roof, but steel that's pressed just to hold the roof on. And unfortunately, the steel that's pressed on the inside is glued to the roof. It's not welded, it's glued. So, if 5 or more passengers are riding in these vans, the likelihood of rollover increases dramatically because of the rear of these vans extend 4.5 to 5 feet behind the rear wheels. And of course, we know that's where the baggage is going to be. So if the vehicle is loaded with 5 or more passengers, an example, the luggage and or equipment, increases the instability during the emergency maneuvers, such as sudden turns to avoid pedestrians, vehicles, or animals on the road. And all of you know there's never an animal on the road on a highway. So when you increase the load on these vehicles, it changes the center of gravity. And we're going to use an example just to give you a real picture now. This is the school bus, and I like you to not to fantasize, but to imagine that this is just one of those vans. And I'm sure all of you have seen them. So, on most normal vehicles, engineers try to make the center of gravity as low as possible so it improves the handling characteristic of the vehicle. The 15-passenger van, originally designed, as I said, for cargo. Cargo is to sit on the floor, no doubt. So it puts the weight to the bottom of the chassis, directly above the frame. So when you put seats in there, what happens to the cargo? It jumps up about 16 inches, a little more than a foot. Center of gravity is just moved. So as you add that precious cargo, when you add 5 passengers, and we all know that no team is of 5, teams are of more. So when they come into the vehicle, they're full of boisterous energy, they're going to a competition. So they pile in 7, 10, 11, 12 students, up to 14. So, as I said earlier, the center of gravity starts to change. So, as it changes, as there's more passengers, as I said, the center of gravity starts to rise. As it rises, it also goes backward because of the momentum of the vehicle going down the road. Very simple mathematics, very simple. So, this vehicle, this 15-passenger van, was designed to carry freight on the floor. Now you change the design of the vehicle just by loading it differently. Who do you think is responsible for the loading but the driver? Professional drivers are expected to know how to handle a load in the vehicle. Commercial drivers, truck drivers, and so on. And they plan the load in the vehicle to do the job. So, we'll go to the next slide. And there's a real inherent factor that happens with these vans, unfortunately. Did that, I'm ahead of myself, sorry. Let me go back one. Increased load on the vehicles change the center of gravity, as I said, upward and rearward, causing the van to experience rear tire slide. And what that really means is that the vehicle starts to lose traction on the tires. And what happens with the tires on that van and any vehicle that's on the road, there's really only a small contact pattern on the road. There's probably on most tires only this much contact between my 2 hands of traction on the road. So if you imagine the weight going up and back, there's a greater than possibility that you could fishtail when you do one of these maneuvers on the highway. So, on the next slide, number 7, fishtailing in turn increases rollovers and devastating crashes. And this information that's on the report all comes from the National Highway Transportation Safety Authority of the United States, and it's all verifiable. If you ever went to that link, be ready to have yourself a coffee and a long read. And then according to BC law, it is unwarranted to have any professional driving experience to get behind the wheel of a 15-passenger van to transport students or passengers. So really what that means, and it's absolute fact, if you're 19 years old in British Columbia, you can get out of the motor vehicle office, put your money on the table, they'll give you a permit to learn how to drive one, or a permit to apply for the license. If you pass the examination on the computer screen,